Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's event, our live that we're doing with Kayla here. We're so excited to have you, Kayla, and she is going to be talking about stuck after surgery. Brittany usually joins us for these events, and she is feeling a little under the weather, so we hope she feels better. But we welcome all of you that are already here. I see Enid. Hello, Enid. Sunshine. I see Kayla. And I'm going to be jumping on to our Facebook page as well, because we're live there as well, so I'll check that. In the meantime, I'm going to do a very short introduction, and I'm just going to kind of let Kayla take it from here. I'm going to let her kind of talk about herself and what she does and all of that, share just about her. So for those of you guys who don't know me, I'm going to do a little introduction because we did a recent survey with our Crowdcast. Thank you guys for being a part of that. We're just getting the results in, and it is so helpful to have that input. And some of the people shared, that they'd like to have us have more people who've had weight loss surgery. So I don't know if you guys even know I had weight loss surgery too. My journey, so my background is in nursing. For those of you who are joining for the very first time, I was a bariatric coordinator for a weight loss surgery program for about 8 years. And we sold ProCare products, so I fell in love with their products. And actually, my job came to an end because of the pandemic and some other things that were going on administratively. And I was fortunate enough, I just reached out to Nick, our CEO, and he always told me, if you're looking for a job, come find me. So I'm like, Nick, I need a job. He just made me a job. So this is kind of what I do. I get to share on events like these and be with wonderful guests like Kayla here. So Kayla, in that, I'm going to check our Facebook page and let you do an introduction.
Sounds good. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining. I know you're sharing your most precious resource with us today, so that's your time. So we will try to make sure you get the most out of that today. And my name's Kayla. I'm a registered dietitian. I have not had weight loss surgery, but I have had several friends and family members who have, and I've seen it really go both ways as far as being successful and maybe not so successful. And my drive, I guess, right when I graduated to be a dietitian, all I've known is weight management. And I was fortunate enough to work in a weight management clinic that also had that surgery option. And I think that is really where I fell in love with just the surgical pathway, because there's so much mindset involved in it. And I think that's really what I love to work on with people, is growing not only, I would say, like, their knowledge on nutrition, but then also just getting some of that self-discovery too. So really my mission is to help people manipulate their metabolism, get the most out of that, but then also help on the mindset transformation too, because it's one thing to lose weight and then it's a whole nother to maintain. And I know those who are joining today with the title Stuck After Surgery, it's like you're probably feeling like maybe stuck or maybe struggling with some regain. And my goal is that today you leave with a little bit of hope and recognizing that you have options. I know we look sometimes at surgery, unfortunately, as maybe a last-ditch effort, and that's not the case. So you have options, and I hope that you find them here today. But I would say when I'm not, being a dietitian, I do love, I love cooking. Reading is one of my favorite things. I am here in central Minnesota, so it's like prime lake weather here, so I'm taking advantage of that, and new to kombucha brewing. So that's my newest hobby. And yes.
I want to hear about that.
Yes, it's a bit of a science experiment every week at this house. So.
Hey, I wanted to just say, to add to what you just said with your introduction, a couple things. Number one, Kayla's topic, I think, is really, it can be for any of you that are out there, because even if you're pre-op, so if you're pre-op and you're not, quote, stuck after surgery, sometimes there's a fear that kind of creeps up if you're preparing for weight loss surgery or considering it. I think, there's all these kind of stigmas out there with having surgery and with going through it, like, is it going to work for me? And then you have this fear. But what I will say is, you know what, everything's possible, everything. So you get the right mindset, you get the right tools, you have the right people in your life, like Kayla, and it helps with the journey. There's not like a magic pill or bullet for anything. It's about you changing, certain things within yourself, and also like not only physically, but also, the mindset and all of that. So I also want to say too, the survey that I mentioned earlier, there was quite a few people who mentioned this is a topic that they would be interested in. So it was very timely, this presentation. Yeah. So at that, let's kind of get started. Kayla actually has some sort of a presentation for you guys. She went to a lot of work for you guys to put all this together. So thank you, Kayla.
Yes, my pleasure. So I will share my screen here, and we will get the party started. So
one other thing I wanted to mention too is, Kayla, I know Berry Nation is one of our most favorite communities. They have recently, ProCare is sponsoring them now, starting August 1st, and we will be, quote, their vitamin of choice, and we're going to be doing live events. So welcome to anybody who is coming from the Berry Nation platform to watch our events, because our events are now listed on their platform, and Kayla is one of their special featured people as well. So let us know if you're from the Berry Nation community, or if you want more information. I'll post a link for that too while she's getting ready. Go ahead, Kayla. Sorry about that.
Yes, I think my first talk will be a week from today, same time, so Wednesday at 1 for Berry Nation, and it'll be my first talk as an expert. So we're doing a berry busting nutrition myths. So we are going to be talking next week about I exercise so I can eat more. So we were going to be diving into that a little bit more. But yes, would love to know if we have any Berry Nation folks on. So, all right.
I'm going to paste their link too. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're okay.
I have squirrel brain most of the time. These people can tell you.
All right. So hopefully, can you see my screen okay, Brenda?
Yes, it's great.
Perfect. So we will get the party started here. A little bit about me. I did just want to mention too, my background is in a surgical clinic. I know I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but one thing I just wanted to mention was, I guess back in October, I left my job as a clinical dietitian because I think recognizing some of those support gaps after surgery, I just wanted to help people in a bigger capacity. So I ventured out on my own because, as a lot of you know who've gone through the process, you may have gotten handed a sheet of 10 different points to do before and after surgery. And I think that is just maybe not realistic for everyone. So my goal now is just to help find where there's exception to those rules, whether it's, maybe drinking with a straw or having carbonation, whatever. We have all these barriers in place. And my philosophy is let's just not make things harder than they need to be. So.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was actually going to say that with your introduction, because I remembered you talking about. So basically, before this, Kayla and I had a conversation, and she was telling me, because I think it's important for people to know kind of your background, because they know where you're coming from, and you're clinical. You've seen tons and tons and tons of pre-bariatric patients and post-bariatric patients from the clinic side. And sometimes it's hard because don't always believe in everything that is being, I don't know if I should say taught, but there's so many conceptions out there about the way things should be. And there's not always, sometimes there's a gray line.
Right. Absolutely. I agree 100%. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just like taking opportunities like this to educate yourself, because I know there's always this blanket of recommendations, and I think to maybe challenge the norm isn't a bad thing. So whether it's, clinic recommendations or whatever you're seeing on TikTok or Instagram, like, don't be scared to maybe dig into that a little bit more and see if it's something that works for you, or maybe it's something that doesn't. It's a lot of self-exploration just to see what works and what doesn't. And that's where I think it's hard. We get into this like game of comparison, especially after surgery. It's like, so-and-so had surgery 3 months ago too, and they're way farther than I am. So it tends to discount the progress that you've made, but no two people's circumstances are the same too. So it's just, I know it's hard to put your blinders on, but I know that's something that I feel like I've kind of repeated a lot lately, is just putting your blinders on, focusing on the things that you can control, and just trying to minimize some of the noise too. But
Absolutely. And Kayla, I'm going to let you go ahead and share your screen again, but I do have 3 questions that people have posted.
Yep.
Do you want me to read those, or do you want to start with your presentation? Do you want to wait until last to do question and answer, or do you want to do them as we go, or?
Maybe if we wait till the end, because maybe we might be answering some of them, unless you think that you kind of have seen the slides. So if you think anything is relevant to
Okay.
of what we just went through, I'm happy to answer now too.
Okay, we'll do that, because actually in the survey people said they wanted to have more of the question and answer towards end. So we'll see. Guys, post as many questions and answers, and then we will get to them as we go through as they pertain, and then those left over we'll do it at the end. Everything is time stamped onto our video, so if you're on your lunch and you have to pop back off, come back for the replay and it will be time stamped, your answer. Okay. In the Q&A. If you're on Facebook, just post them and I will we will get them answered. The replay will be available there as well.
Well, so was there one that you wanted to do right away?
Well, I think this one's a good start one, because it talks about probably where you're starting. It's Enid. She says, hello and thank you in advance. I would like to know what to do when I plateaued. I need to lose 20 pounds and I have left. I'm not about the weight type of girl. Mm-hmm. And she spelled weight as opposed to weight. So
yes. So kind of looking to just kind of break through the plateau. Is that what I'm
Yeah.
doing? Okay, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about some of those strategies too, just along with getting back to the basics, but then some of the emotional piece too. So I think that could be 2-part, like whether it's old habits maybe creeping back, or if it's kind of straying away. But then I do have some other measurables and things too. So I'm just going to make a note here, because I did get a couple of questions when I went to Instagram too, kind of along those same lines, just how do we break through a plateau?
Okay.
All right, so I will get started then here. All righty, so hopefully you can see the agenda.
Yes.
All right.
We can see it.
Yes. So first, I just wanted to start off with some of the factors affecting weight, because you'll see the list is quite long, and I just hope that helps kind of free some of that weight from your shoulders. We're going to talk about emotional eating, because I think that is a big thing that comes back in the form of old habits. And we'll talk about getting back on track, of course, and some strategies for breaking those plateaus. And then I do have some resources that I will send you home with today. And then we will end with our Q&A. But first, I wanted to know a little bit more, just if you guys wouldn't mind sharing in the chat box, maybe 1 or 2 reasons what brought you to this call today. So maybe you feel like you've hit a stall, or you've struggled after surgery. What are maybe those top 2 things that stick out to you? What are they? Let us know. So I don't know, Brenda, if you have access, if you see things coming in, but
yes, I will let you know. I'm also posting on our Facebook. Okay. And
this will just help me tailor a little bit more, but sometimes it just helps to pluck out common themes. I would say oftentimes I think some common things that I see are old habits creeping back, which is a little generic, but maybe snacking more, or more stress eating, grazing, sleep. It can really be a number of factors.
Okay, some of the things that's mentioned here, it says regain after surgery and struggling to get it off, struggled after adding solids back to diet, post-op. I'm 6 years out and just wanting to make sure I want to stay on track. I gained the typical 20 pounds. My plan is okay with that, but otherwise I think I'm snacking might be creeping up on me again. Another person gained 20 pounds after three years post-surgery. This is Tammy. Never made it to the weight I wanted. Enid said she's 1 year and 4 months. She's the one who posted about the regain as well. Mm-hmm. And then we have Sheena. I've plateaued 68 pounds down, but needing to lose more, 20 pounds, plus drinking fluids gets me so full. I don't eat what I should, the right foods. And then on Facebook, let me see if I have anything. Yes, I do. Janine, I hope I'm saying that right. Such a pretty name, spelling Janeen. She says, I'm 7 months post-op and find that old habits are creeping back in, snacking, not enough water, etc. And then Nicole says, I got two more. Grazing, Nicole's three more. Grazing, snacking while watching TV, not hungry. Also, I'm full with, another one. Also, I'm full with less than 1,000 calories per day. Sunshine says, I feel you, Sheena, I'm with you. And the last one I'm going to take to let you start talking is Arcara. I hope I'm saying that right. Struggling with making some meal plans. I want to eat more than just protein bars and shakes, adding more options into my diet. Okay.
Awesome. Well, that gives us that. I would say these are kind of some of the answers I expected. So some themes that I plucked out of there was snacking, old habits creeping back, grazing, fluids, just maybe being challenged with some fullness and feeling your restriction and not maybe getting in what you can. And then it sounds like several of you either maybe had some regain or just maybe not to the weight you want to be. So you're in the right place. So we will definitely cover those today. But I wanted to show you just first some of the factors influencing weight, because I think a lot of times we look at these first two, we look at nutrition, we look at activity, and a lot of the brunt of that work falls on your shoulders, right? So hopefully this gives you more of a holistic, whole body picture. This isn't meant to overwhelm you by any means, but I think, for example, if you are in those shoes where you feel like you're eating your protein, you're getting your fluids, you're doing all the things and just stuck, there's a lot of things that impact weight. So a couple that I'll highlight here are hormones. So hormones play such a huge role, and hormones in themselves are tied to a lot of the things on this list. But you've got things like medication, stress, and sleep, I think are heavily underestimated when it comes to both weight loss and weight management. And oftentimes that's where I see people getting hung up and it's so many of these factors. So I don't know if there's a couple that maybe stick out to you that maybe you haven't thought of. And then of course we will talk a little bit more about habits today. That is one of my favorite topics. So.
And Kayla, since you said that, there's actually one of the comments or the questions. It says, I had surgery in December. So it brings in what you're talking about, the medications, because I feel like that is, you are right, that is underestimated. It says ulcerative colitis flare up in January, been on prednisone since what started as a great progress has gone backwards with weight gain. So frustrating. Now I feel like the same as surgery day. It feels like surgery was a complete waste of time and probably was the cause of UC flare up. It's still not under control. Mm-hmm. That I don't know if that's really something that we can fully address here. It might be more of a one-on-one conversation, but is there anything that you can say to help her from being discouraged?
I would say whether it's medications or even if you're just like feeling stuck or not where you want to be, if you have that relationship with your surgical team, like that would be probably my number one suggestion is if you're comfortable reaching out to them, weight gain aside, I know sometimes that can feel very embarrassing or shameful when you feel like you're not the perfect patient, quote unquote, but just having that open relationship there, because there's people like your surgical or bariatric team or folks like myself who, our living is meant to help people. So asking for help is not a bad thing. And just seeing maybe if there's different options for things like medications, because yes, that's frustrating and there may be better options. I'm not sure with ulcerative colitis in particular, but that would be my first recommendation is just making that phone call because and showing up for the appointment, number 2. So just to really have some follow through there, because that's going to be the first line. So we'll talk about more lifestyle things today, but when it gets into the more medically complex, that's definitely where I'd start. And again, like Brenda and I were talking earlier, if you feel like, we talk about this gray area a little bit. If you feel like you're just not comfortable with your provider, maybe asking to meet with somebody else in the department. So as some of you may know, maybe you feel like you're getting a new primary or, maybe just feel stuck with a certain person. Don't be scared to ask for a different provider. So.
And Kayla, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do consultations with one-on-one with people who are struggling with these kind of things too?
I do. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll be sharing her information as well. But yeah, your surgical program is always a great way to start. Sometimes that's included with your plan, like whatever you're doing. But if you, for whatever reason, because feeling comfortable is one of the biggest things, if you don't, there are a lot of other sources to go through as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to jump right into it. So I wanted to start with emotional eating, just because when I hear things like struggling with snacking or grazing, a lot of the things that stick out are those old habits creeping back. So one thing I would challenge is just to identify some of your existing defaults, or maybe for those of you who are right after surgery, what were some of those habits or routines that you did before surgery that you're worried about coming back? So for example, one thing that I did with my our weekly live call a few weeks ago is I went through the who, what, when, where, why with my group coaching program, and we just looked at, okay, some of these defaults. Who are you with? Are you alone? Are you with family? Are these emotional eating episodes? Are they happening around like charged conversations? When are they happening? So is it after work? Is it after you put the kids down to bed? What time of day are they happening? What are you eating? So do you notice yourself going back to some of the same foods? And then the big question really is that why, which we'll talk about a little bit more too. But just asking yourself to, what am I really hungry for? Is it even food? So I'll let that sit a little bit. But another piece of this is, I know we talk about the all or nothing thinking, and a lot of us tend to thrive in structure. We want to know what to do. We want to know what not to do. That's why I think we're drawn to, maybe things like low carb or keto. It's like, okay, carbs are off limit, or it just makes things a little bit clearer. So one of my goals is just to help like some of my clients play in that gray area a little bit and try to avoid that black or white thinking, which is super uncomfortable at first, but I think it's necessary, and it's some of that invisible progress that you may be making. You may not see progress on the scale, but when you're able to enjoy some of those favorite foods without maybe eating past fullness, or enjoying them without guilt, those are really huge wins that deserve celebrating. So, and then lastly, adopting a growth mindset. So recognizing that setbacks are always going to happen, change is going to happen, and just using those as opportunities to maybe experiment, or looking at them as learning opportunities versus looking at them as, oh, this happened again and I might as well just revert back to old habits. It's how, when a setback or a so-called failure happens, how can you use that as a learning experience and help that to not just move on, but move forward? So this was another thing that we looked at a few weeks ago, but when we talk about the why, so that who, what, where, when, why of your existing defaults, just looking at what emotion are you craving. So maybe, for example, you get home from work, you've cooked dinner, the kids are in bed, maybe you just want some relief or to give yourself a break. Maybe it's not even food that you're craving, but if you're having, guilt just associated with giving yourself a break, or maybe you have an upcoming event and you're feeling really anxious and food is there to help soothe that, or maybe you had a conversation that ticked you off and you want something now. So just really recognizing and putting a pause when you notice that urge to snack or to graze. What maybe outside of food do you think you're craving? Whether it's maybe connection with somebody else, if it's taking a break. There's so many things, and I know we have a heavy audience of women on the call today. I think this is especially pertinent just when you're trying to do all the things and maybe not taking as much time to just give yourself that quiet space. So to help tease that out a little bit further, this is one of my favorite slides. I think just digging into really distinguishing, am I hungry or is it a craving? And if you think about contrasting the two, we think about hunger that's gradual, something that comes on over the course of hours, versus say you have a craving, maybe you just received a phone call and somebody ticked you off and now you're after the Cheetos or something. So hunger again is physical. So this is one of my favorite things to help distinguish, is it hunger or is it a craving? And if you think of like stomach growling, or maybe you feel like, mentally you've hit a wall and just need some energy, versus cravings, which are more emotionally charged. When it comes to what kind of foods you're looking at, if you think of like when you're really hungry, you are going to eat anything that's basically within arm's reach, versus a craving where you probably have a few certain foods I would challenge that are the ones that you go after. So whether it's the Cheez-Its or the chocolate or the ice cream, whatever is hanging out, what foods are they? Because if your craving is specific to a certain food, chances are you aren't hungry.
Uh-huh.
So. And then hunger, it makes food taste better. So on the resource sheet that I'm sharing today, I have one of my favorite books is Eat What You Love, Love What You Eat by Michelle May. Don't worry about writing that down. It'll be on your resource sheet. But Michelle May specializes in intuitive eating. And she was a physician that recognized like, hey, I'm recommending my patients to eat 1,200 calories a day. I can't even do that. And one of her big philosophies is that hunger is the best seasoning. So if you think about like when you're hungry, food tastes a lot better versus when it's a craving, you may not even taste it. It's just there to soothe emotions and not really for that pleasure to your taste buds. And then the last line, so hunger, it's not a bad thing. I wanted to end on that because I think maybe some of you don't remember the last time you were hungry, or you've just always been maybe grazing or snacking or scared to be hungry. Nowadays, it's like we can walk to the gas station and we have food at our disposal, but unfortunately, we have a 2 million year old brain that is wired for survival, and being hungry is not a bad thing. We have mechanisms in place to help when that energy is low. And when it comes to cravings, really recognizing that that could be a signal for fulfillment in other areas, like we talked on the previous slide, just looking at what emotions maybe you aren't getting in your life that you want to see more of. And so what can you do about it? So here's a few things that you can do just to help with that emotional component. So mindfulness is a big piece. I feel like maybe this term is overused a lot nowadays and it seems a little diluted, but to give you an idea, mindfulness is going to be different for everyone. So if you're looking at certain things like keeping a gratitude journal like the picture here, or meditation, or just sitting in silence, it could be breathing exercises, it could be yoga, it could be prayer. You know, what are those things that you do that really maybe help fill your cup and just clear some of that mental clutter? And self-care is aligned with that too. I know, ironically, I have a picture of a bubble bath here, but I always like to say, like, I love the quote, self-care is more than bubble baths and pedicures, because really self-care is going to come down to eating healthy, moving your body, taking care of it just so you feel your best self. But that is going to mean carving out some time to do those things and also doing more of the things that fill you up, because I think we try to say yes to all of the things. And that brings me to point number 3, and that is to say no. And again, for all the women and the guys on the call, I think we naturally feel like when we're asked to do something, we just have to say yes. But when you're saying yes to things that maybe aren't aligned with your values or not on your priority list, that likely means that you're saying no to things that really mean a lot to you. So whether it is saying yes to, you know, bringing all the meals for the baseball tournament, or, you know, if you're saying no to something like that and letting somebody else do it, think of all the time that you have just freed up to do maybe things that you want to do, unless that's something that fills your cup and you want to do. But I think setting boundaries and saying no is big, and that's a hard thing to do, but the more you practice this, the easier it gets. So, and then just to end the piece on emotional eating, I wanted to end with one of my favorite quotes from Glenn McIntosh. He is a psychologist. He's Australian, so if you're a sucker for Australian accents, you would love Glenn. He is a psychologist, and he specializes in weight management and movement and body image. And Glenn says that emotional eating is like double dipping on a bad mood. And I couldn't agree more.
I love that. Is he friends with Amanda Clark, who is portion control? The reason why I ask is we just had Amanda, and I think I've seen him on some of her emails that she sends out.
I don't know. I would maybe. I don't know if we're just associating them because they're from the same country, but
I don't
I have
know.
to know. Yeah. But I do, that's kind of the midpoint. So I don't know if you had questions that are relevant to the emotional eating piece, and
Let
then
me
I
look
can get
here real
into just
quick.
getting back to the basics. So, yes.
I kind of feel like Enid's first question here, it says, in other words, like going to weigh myself every day. So to me, I feel like that's an emotional component because if I step on the scale the first thing in the morning, it sets my day sometimes for like emotionally. And I don't know, I hate that it does that. I have to tell myself, you know what? My weight does not defy my mood,
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like that sometimes people do weigh. It's good to weigh because you keep yourself,
Yeah.
you can monitor where you're at. Do you have anything to say to that about that?
I know it's hard because I think for some people it's nice because it helps keep you within maybe that range. And I mean, there's no truer thing than that number on the scale. But when we look back at that slide that has 18 different things that impact your weight, recognizing that day to day that you're going to have those fluctuations. So maybe you had a higher stress day, you see that number go up, chances are that's going to come down. Or if maybe you're carrying a little bit of extra inflammation, like that's going to impact the scale. But recognizing and looking more so at trends. So if you are the person that's not willing to give up the scale, I believe it's called Happy Scale is one app, and it'll actually show you like weekly averages. So doing something like that might be helpful. Or I know if you're more analytical and like to do your own spreadsheets, like just looking more so at like a weekly average. I've done that with a lot of patients who like to look at the scale, and then we look at weekly averages and it's like, look, they're going in the right direction versus letting that one single number determine the rest of your day. But again, I do have a slide that we end with that shows all these things that you can measure outside the scale. So if you can, put it away for a little bit. I think sometimes just that mental relief can help bring some of that stress down, which might maybe help.
And I think I misunderstood what she said because she's kind of clarifying a little bit. She just basically was saying she does not weigh herself every day.
Okay.
But she said she's not regained weight. She's just stuck where she's at. So, but I'm glad you brought all that in because I think that's helpful. And I'm looking to see if there's anything else about. There's one here. It says 5 years out, gain 20 back with bad habits. Now, would you? To me, our emotions can be a bad habit. I know that sounds silly, but we get in this thing where it's like they'll start cycling and then one pulls up on another, and it's like you just get yourself in a,
Right.
instead of emotionally, you go down instead of going up.
I would say a couple things too, like just starting with one thing at a time. So I think a lot of times we're like, I'm going to start on Monday, I'm going to overhaul everything, and I'm not going to do this, and this. And just really starting with something small. So it could be, maybe just getting your water in for the day, which is a big task. So that might not be something small, but, or even some non-food or nutrition things is journaling. So I love journaling. That's something I've personally done, and trying to get into that habit. But you'd be surprised, like once that pen hits the paper, just like what your stream of thought is, and that can help tease out some of those things as well. So I would say that would be a good spot to start. But,
Okay.
well, I'll get going here on the second half. That way we can hopefully we can squeeze in everything on everyone's lunch break here.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So getting back to the basics. So I will go through these. I know this first slide maybe isn't like earth-shattering things, but again, we want to keep things as simple as possible. So if you're just feeling really overwhelmed or not sure where to start with your nutrition. So don't worry about doing all these things at once. Work on nutrition first, activity second. I don't want to discount how important exercise is in the long run, but when you're looking at your results, I would say 80 to 90% of that scale moving or maybe getting to where you want to be is going to be based on your nutrition. So starting with that, just really focusing on that protein. Some days you might hit your goal, some days you might not, but don't let that hold you back. So typically I recommend that patients aim for 20 to 30 grams per meal. So that can be a little bit of your baseline. That might seem like a lot, especially for some of you who are maybe within that first, 3 to 6 months after surgery. That can seem like a stretch, but you'll get there. Once your portions grow, which I know can be scary, your meals will be, a little bit more well-rounded too. And fluid, a couple of things that I wanted to point out here. I know we look at like 64 ounces. That's, kind of midline. It could be more or less for some people, but just emphasizing the not with meals. So for those of you that are really struggling with maybe managing some of that restriction and fullness or snacking and grazing, I don't think this is always well explained, but when you are, drinking fluids right up to a meal, you're filling your pouch or your stomach with water. So you're getting that stretch. And when it comes time to eat, you're not really leaving a whole lot of room to get some good nutrition. So by leaving that 20 or 30 minute window before a meal, that's really going to help when it comes to mealtime for you to get a little bit more in. And that's going to help your satisfaction in the long run, which I know after surgery, this is always one of the hardest things for people, because I think when we look at weight loss in general, it's like, okay, you're hungry, well, slam a glass of water, right? And then it comes after surgery and we're telling you not to, drink before and after meals. So doing your best, if you feel like this is something you struggle with, even starting with 10 or 15 minutes before a meal. And sometimes that might mean having a little bit more of a timeline throughout the day.
Kayla, there is a question here that's kind of pertaining to this. She said, another question is the best time to take your vitamins. And I'm sorry if I missed that. She said, I've been taking them mid-morning and the rest at night.
Good question, because I think that is sometimes doesn't get explained either. So like I have here on the third point is your supplements. So your multivitamin with iron, I would say at a minimum that's what you should be taking. And I love the ProCare has a once daily chewable and a once daily capsule. And what I love about that is, first of all, it has your iron, it's your multivitamin, it's got extra B12 and extra D. So really it covers these first 4 things all in one. So if you want to go as simple as possible, doing something like that and taking it with a meal. So that's going to help with absorption. So especially things like vitamin D, for example, needs a little bit of fat. It's a fat soluble vitamin. So having it with, it doesn't really matter whether it's breakfast, lunch, or your evening meal, whatever fits your schedule best or whenever you think you're going to remember to take it.
The fat soluble vitamins. So our multivitamin, like Kayla was saying, it actually has A, D, E, and K, which are all fat soluble. And our calcium product actually has an extra vitamin D. It has 500 IU of vitamin D in it too as well. So total, you should be getting, if you take one, like a multivitamin, ProCare, I guess, one a day, and then you take 3 calcium supplements, you should be getting all the vitamin D you need as far as the recommendations, and the B12. Some supplements, now some people will have a little problem with their B12. They feel like it gives them extra energy and they want to take extra. I hardly ever see anybody's level low. I don't know about you, Kayla, but if you're wanting extra supplementation, there is additional B12 supplements, but the actual formulation does have enough. And some people just absorb better into other forms like sublingual or injection. So, yeah.
It's common to see that high. Like you were saying, Brenda, like that's a rare one to see low is the vitamin B12. So if you maybe have gotten labs back recently and you notice your B12 is really high, when you're supplementing after surgery, that's not outside the norm and it's not a concern. So you're just paying for more expensive urine maybe. So
kind of just goes on out.
Yes.
And sometimes people, I've heard, so the calcium is separated, it's supposed to be separated, I guess, from the others by 2 hours. Anytime you have a multivitamin with iron, I guess the iron is the component of separation. But really, sometimes people too, you were talking about the vitamins, sometimes people like taking them at night. Have you heard of people liking to do that? Because It helps, like they fall asleep and then they don't notice the stomach upset at all, that type of thing.
Exactly. Yep, absolutely. Or like if you're one of those people, especially after surgery, I think some of the chewables hit a little hard, or you feel like maybe they make you feel a little bit nauseous, even taking them at the tail end of your meal, or like you said, Brenda, in the evening where you feel like maybe you won't notice that as much either.
For
Mhm.
me, what I've noticed the biggest thing, it wasn't timing wise taking them, it's eating with them or making sure I'm drinking plenty of fluids with them. I know it sounds silly, but for some
Mhm.
reason it helps those capsules dissolve and helps it go move through quicker. The
Mhm.
fluids made a big difference. So
Yeah.
for me,
Yeah,
sorry,
excellent
Kayla,
point.
I didn't mean to get stuck there
No,
on you.
no, you're good. All right, so back to the basics to get in a little bit deeper. So, snacking, some of my emojis didn't show up here, but there should be like a little it should say no snacking. So I had like a little red circle with a line through it, but trying to limit snacking as much as you can. So when we look at, outside of weight loss surgery, when we look at snacking, that's really going to influence your blood sugar and your insulin levels a lot. So it's going to make them be elevated, maybe when they shouldn't be elevated, and it's going to make weight loss harder. So trying to limit snacking, if you're feeling physically hungry between meals, maybe we can look a little bit further at your meal composition. So I do have on the resource sheet, I have a free grocery list download that you can get. So that will help kind of walk you through maybe some of food choices if you're feeling like you want a little bit of help with food selection. Oops. And hopefully you can hear me okay. I think Brenda, maybe we just lost you. Um, but just really trying to aim for those 3 meals a day and limiting snacking and eating until satisfied. So again, if you feel like you want some more help with food selection, looking at downloading that grocery list, I do have a little bit of a mini email series that will help walk you through some of the macronutrients too, to help give you some guidance. But when we're looking at eating 3 meals a day versus maybe 5 or 6 small meals throughout the day, when you are focusing on getting a little bit more at those meal times, so that means maybe stopping your fluids 30 minutes before a meal so you're able to take in more. I know that can be a little bit scary, but the idea is to get a gentle stretch on your pouch or your stomach, because really what is going to happen is when you get that stretch on your stomach, that's going to send signals to your brain that, hey, I'm full. And that's going to start that hormonal cascade. So when you are snacking continuously throughout the day or grazing, you're not getting that stretch on your stomach. And that's really not telling your brain or giving it the signals it needs to say, hey, you're full. So stopping the snacking, eating until you're satisfied when it comes to mealtime, and then sleep. So sleep, I think, is one of those things that is just heavily underestimated when it comes to weight management. So when you think of the days when you're tired, chances are you're probably a lot hungrier. And when we don't get good sleep, it's actually going to put our bodies in a low grade state of inflammation. So a lot of times if you're carrying excess weight, you already might be at a heightened risk for higher inflammation, and not getting good sleep is going to compound on that. So it's going to make some of your stress hormones higher. It's going to make some of your blood sugars higher, your insulin higher, and it's really just going to make weight loss harder than it needs to be. So trying to get good quality sleep when you can. For some people, that might be, a solid 5 or 6 hours. For some people, it might be 8 or 9. So it might take a little bit to see what works for you. And then my last slide here for getting back to the basics is eating from a plate. So this is something I'm personally trying to work on a lot, is just really recognizing those times when maybe you're standing in front of the pantry or eating from a package, or maybe it's if you're the primary cook at home and you're cooking and tasting or cleaning up from dinner and licking spoons and cleaning up everybody else's plates. Trying to eat from a plate can be one way to help increase that mindfulness, but then also kind of minimize that extra food that's coming in that we, again, really don't think about. So eating without distractions. So I know we love to have our screens, whether it is, eating in front of the TV or eating in front of while you're watching TikTok, whatever the case may be. If you can create that quiet space to eat, that's really going to transform your eating experience and allow your mind some time to catch up with your body. And you are going to get so much more satisfaction from meals when you're not distracted by all the other things that you're doing. So even if you're taking just 15 minutes to sit down and enjoy a meal, that is going to really reap dividends in helping you notice that fullness. Or if you're someone who struggles with just slowing down and maybe feeling that uncomfortable feeling, whether it's the burps or the chest pains afterwards, this can help with that slowing down process too. And lastly, for any of my closet eaters out there. So just being mindful of when you're eating inside of others. So do you tend to eat more alone, or are you maybe ashamed of your quantities, whether it's too much or too little? You don't want others to judge. Like, just being mindful of what those meals look like, maybe when it's with people and when it's not. So just seeing maybe what your tendencies or some of those defaults again tend to look like. And then, as I mentioned previously, so just some other measurables. We talked about the scale a little bit already, but there's so many other ways to measure your progress, whether it's things like breaking down your nutrition, like we've got here, the vegetables, fluids, protein, activity. So like daily steps or miles, those can be really motivating things to track. But more importantly, the measurables that you're seeing on your screen now are going to be more so associated with those habit building skills versus looking at a single number on the scale. So of course you can resort to something like going back to a pouch reset, for example, which I highly don't recommend as a side note, but really looking at something like that, yes, is going to make that needle on the scale move, but really it's not going to help you incorporate habits like getting your fluids in or being more mindful of protein, journaling or having meals at the table with your family. So things like this can be really more true to your actual progress versus that number on the scale. And then the second to last one here, this is my husband's favorite, is how many times you didn't cave. So sometimes he'll keep record of, oh, I didn't go through the drive-through today, or things like that. And then he'll put $5 in our Florida fund. So you can find other, fun things like that to maybe, if you saved money from going through the drive-through or from buying energy drinks, maybe you can put those towards a reward for yourself. And then lastly, of course, counting your blessings. And to end this portion here, as a bariatric patient, as we mentioned in the beginning, you just must continually educate and advocate for yourself because no one is going to do it for you. And like Brenda and I were talking earlier, there's so many like black and white recommendations, and sometimes what works for you might be in that gray area. So the more you know, the more you grow. I think that was a Barry Nation. I heard that on one of their podcasts, but the more you know, the more you grow, and the more you are able to comfortably advocate for yourself and maybe challenge some of those norms when you feel like they just don't fit your lifestyle or the vision that you see for yourself. So I will leave you with some resources today. So I have a resource sheet. Brenda will let us know where to find that, but I do have a list of some of my favorite books. So anything from habits to some of that mindset work. I do have a gastric sleeve bariatric cookbook that I really, really like. That is on the sheet as well. I have some of my favorite podcasts. One does feature Mr. Glenn McIntosh. So if you remember him from the emotional eating quote, one is with him. And there's a couple others that I think could just be really beneficial. And it takes a lot for me to recommend a podcast. So that means I've kind of screened some of the other ones out for you. And social media, I will share some of my links at the end here. And then if you are looking for more support, I do have a group membership program for women after bariatric surgery. So if you feel like maybe you are still seeking more based on today's conversation, we have an awesome group of women. We do monthly challenges together. We meet for weekly office hours every week and talk about anything from emotional eating to exercise to tomorrow we'll be talking about gut health around weight loss surgery and a ton of resources. You have one-on-one access to me with this as well, so you can always message me, but all of my programming is run through my Life app, and you have everything you need. So if you feel overwhelmed or like you're lacking support and don't know what to do, that's a good way to just help put your blinders on. And I offer that for $39 a month. So compared to some other programs out there, I feel like it is very reasonable for one-on-one access to a dietitian, plus all our resources. And if you use promo code ProCare, you will get 25 off your first month. So I do have links to that on your resource sheet. And if it's something that you want to, if you want to see if we're a good fit together, or maybe you like some of the things that you saw today, I would love to chat one-on-one just to see maybe where you're struggling and what I can provide to help get you unstuck.
Yeah,
so
thanks so much, Kayla.
Yeah, so this was just my very, sorry, I'm like all about the quotes, but the scale is stuck, but not me. So there's your final quote of the day. But but yes, thank you guys so much. I will open it up here. I'm sure we have some questions to answer.
I also just want to, I don't know why I'm echoing now. Sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
or am
I
still
don't
echoing?
hear any issues.
Okay. The resource sheets, I just wanted to share where they could find those at, Kayla, before we start the question and answer. I posted in both the Facebook, on our Facebook page, and also here in this forum, a link. If you're on our Crowdcast channel, there's actually a green call to action button at the bottom. It says Stuck After Surgery Handouts. Click here. It's at the bottom of the page. But I'm going to just show them real quickly how to get there. Like if they, I'm sharing my screen. If you go to the ProCare Health website, and I'm going to scroll up. So when you get on the ProCare Health website, it's going to look like this. You'll click over to About Us. And this first one here is Support Group Handouts. And then it's at the very bottom of the page. So I'm going to scroll down pretty quickly here. And both her presentation from today and also this resource sheet. And I'm going to open that up. I opened it in another tab. She has the More from Kayla, her life program. These are all links. If you download this, you will actually be able to just click on any of these, and it has all these different really helpful things. You have the dietitian grocery list, protein tips, her video series, her newsletter, and then the books that she talked about. We also have the podcast she talked about, and then how to follow her on social media forums. So
yes, and just click, and that should hopefully take you where you need to go. So
yeah, thank you for sharing all that.
My pleasure. I know it's hard to cram things into an hour, but I would say, again, I know I mentioned journaling earlier. It's like if you can even just read for 10 minutes a day on maybe a topic around surgery or something that you feel like you're struggling with, and I'm not saying like things that come through on TikTok or a blog, like an actual physical book, like I think that can be really helpful for your mindset too, and just to help that mental transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I say we are going to give a shout out to our sponsor here in just a moment. Before we do that, I do want to answer. Let's take 3 questions. See if we can do that. So Sunshine posted a question. What does a pouch reset consist of, and what's the benefits of it?
All right, so I'm going to say a hard pass on pouch resets, but essentially just to give you an idea, so pouch resets go back to, if you imagine those first weeks after surgery, really it's that diet progression. So it's starting out with clear liquids maybe for a day or two, and then to full liquids, and then to soft foods, and then really again that post-diet progression. But yes, that it's helpful that it gives you structure. You're probably going to see some pounds go down on the scale, but it's not really going to help that mental transformation or building those habits either. So it can be glamorous in the fact that you might see progress really fast, but chances are once you stop that pouch reset, there is the chance that you're just going to maybe slide back to where you were. So in in lieu of a pouch reset, I would maybe pick on some of those measurables that we looked at. If you're picking maybe one or two things, maybe I know a lot of people who maybe hear if they're journaling or have, whether it's food or thoughts, I think that can be helpful. I don't always love food journals because I think they can be triggering for a lot of people. But if you even take that away from an app where it's kind of got the numbers and you get your head out of the counting calories and counting protein, it's like using paper and writing down what you eat, maybe how you're feeling. And that can really identify some trends too. So journaling can be helpful, but I'm more interested in maybe timing and emotions than I would be in what you're actually eating.
Yeah, and I kind of think awareness for me, myself personally, is the biggest thing that I can do whenever I'm getting off track. To me, sometimes it even just takes journaling a half a day or a full day or 2 days, and it'll help. Journaling, by that I mean also food tracking or doing whatever. It's not something I have to do consistently, but it's something that just helps me be aware of my pattern. And then once you become aware of your pattern, you can change. So
Right. And I think recognizing too that it's not like change isn't going to happen overnight. So say if, again, you're one of those that's struggling really with grazing or snacking and you're trying to get to that 3 meals a day, like some days you might need a snack. Like if you think of kids, like some days they eat a lot and some days they eat like birds, and we're no different. So you are going to have days where you're more hungry and days where maybe you're not so hungry, and just recognizing you might need a little bit more one day and not as much the next, but no 2 days are going to be the same. So don't try to make it like I got to hit my macros to the T or be under a certain calorie range. Because I think that when we're focusing so much on numbers, then we really get away from, I think, that intuitiveness too. So but I think there's a fine balance.
Absolutely. And then I have, I think these could be, so we're going to do this one here. It says, I am 1 year post-op and feel like I've learned to eat around my restriction, going back to old habits like non-mindful eating, and kind of ties into what we were just talking about. Every now and then I overeat and get the ate too much feeling. So I know there's restriction there, but I fear my pouch is stretched.
And I think more so, I think that's a big concern for a lot of people is like stretching out your pouch. And just a caveat, like your stomach is a muscle. It's meant to stretch. And like we talked about earlier, like when you're actually getting like good, satisfying meals, like the goal is to get a little bit of stretch on your stomach, because that's what's going to send those signals to your brain and give that cascade that, hey, you're full, and make it easier to maybe not eat for 4 or 5 hours. So a little bit of stretch is good, but when you're constantly eating past comfort, that's when I would say let's go to those emotional things and maybe dive in a little bit deeper to the reasons why you're eating. But I think too, just looking at what that food selection looks like, because for those of you that are familiar with like slider foods, when you think of those foods that sit on your tongue and dissolve, like if it is, I think we had somebody mention earlier, like just not wanting to rely on packaged foods. And when you're eating a lot more whole foods, those are going to keep you fuller a lot longer too, and make that easier to stick more so to the 3 meals a day, and help limit snacking when you're getting some good nourishment. So again, I do have my grocery list on that resource sheet. That might be a good spot to start too.
Absolutely. So I'm going to down answer. And these are more comments. Enid said, I'm also lifting weights. That could be a factor of not losing weight. She said due to gaining muscle. Do you have anything to say about that?
I would say taking measurements. That would be my number one thing, is like taking measurements, and pictures are huge too. So I know pictures are very uncomfortable, but imagine yourself 6 months from now and you're still doing this weight routine. With weightlifting, you're really going to see some big physical transformation. But a picture is really worth 1,000 words. And 6 months from now, you might wish you took that picture today just so you can see your progress. Because even when you're taking measurements, it's like, oh, yay, I'm down 2 inches around my waist. But to see it in a picture, or even in maybe some form-fitting clothes or clothes that you want to feel more comfortable in, I think that can be a really good way to measure progress that doesn't include the scale. But keep up the strength training.
Yeah, good for you. There's one more here. I'm going to take this as the last one. Kayla, what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting?
Oh, I love this question. I don't know if this person did some research on me, but I personally am a fan of intermittent fasting, and I'm going to get some blowback from the bariatric community for this, but I think there are some ways that you can tie in a form of intermittent fasting called like time restricted feeding. I don't love the R word in there, but I like to call it timed eating. So just being more mindful of meal timing. So I think for most people, it's realistic to get all of your nutrition in a 12-hour window. So if you think of, say you finished your dinner at 7 p.m., breakfast wouldn't be until 7 a.m. the next day. You can still drink all your fluids, do all that fun stuff in the meantime, but there are some really good benefits to giving your body a little bit of rest. So for your digestive system, you're probably going to eat a lot better. But when it comes to like intermittent fasting, like one meal a day or trying to get all your meals in 4 hours, that's not realistic if you've had surgery. So I would say just being really mindful about that window. But I would say for most people, like getting your meals in a 12-hour window is pretty realistic. For some people, it might be 10 hours. For some people, it might be 14. So that is something that I feel strongly can help with progress too.
She also says, no, LOL, I do 16 hours fasting 3 times a week.
Okay. Yeah, and doing like every other day. I would just like making sure you're getting some good meals in. I know one thing that is nice. So for those folks who are further past surgery and really feeling like you've lost that restriction or maybe that benefit immediately after surgery, it can be helpful to manipulate time versus changing so much and overhauling what you're eating. When you're playing with that window, it can help get you some progress without overhauling your diet. But yes, so I would say depending on where you're at with surgery and what your meals look like, I think that could be realistic. So again, everybody's going to be a little bit different, but
yeah. Thank you guys for all the good questions. Yeah. This group has been so interactive, and we've had so many between here and Facebook. One thing I am going to mention is that Kayla is one of our affiliates, and I'm going to she actually has an affiliate link. If anybody is interested in ProCare products, which we're going to kind of talk about here in just a moment, because ProCare is our sponsor. Kayla.
And I have to say so I'm super picky when it comes to things. So I am very much like type A and research. And one thing that really drew me to ProCare was just like you guys are so transparent. And I think that that's one thing that we don't see a lot when it comes to supplements is that transparency. So I know you test every single batch of vitamins and post lot numbers, and you're third party tested. And especially after surgery, when vitamins are so critical, I think that's important to have that third party testing first of all, but the transparency and the cost, it is ridiculous. It blows my mind at how much vitamins can be, and to get a month's supply for, $12 is amazing. So yes, Brenda will post the link. But
well, and two, I just want to say alongside that, and this is actually, I do work with ProCare obviously, but I will say I worked in a position kind of like Kayla in a clinic setting for 8 years, and we sold all different kinds of vitamins. I'm not going to list them out here. And I think ProCare was always my favorite just because of the cost, affordability, and then also like you said, the kind of the transparency of being that you're getting a good quality product, like it follows all the ASMBS guidelines. For me, that was really important. And for our population there at the clinic I work for, affordability was one of the biggest things, because you could buy it every single month and you got to be able to afford it to buy it. And we had a population that needed that, needed that thing. And this is the good news. The one thing I wanted to share, Kayla, so I'm going to share my screen really quickly here. We are actually, I got a little photo here that I'm going to pull up. Okay, so you want to try the new protein flavors before buying an entire bag. Good news is, guys, we now have the protein samples. And so if you order this month, you actually get a free vanilla protein powder. If you order next month, you get a free chocolate protein powder. So that's just a fun little tidbit. So you get to try the new protein powders. Has anybody here, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, anybody here got to try the new protein? Kayla, did you get to try it yet?
I did, yes. Yep. I know, I think I posted a while back like a chocolate chia pudding. So I used the chocolate, not the vanilla, but yes, it's very good. And one thing that I think makes you a little bit different is you have added electrolytes in there too.
Yes, I love that. And it's whey protein. So, I mean, I feel like that's good. And it has some immunity blend for all this crazy COVID stuff that's still going around. So an immunity blend with extra vitamins and minerals for that as well. And Enid here says, I put mine in my coffee every morning and I baked a cake with that as well. And she just made waffles. She just posted a video on making waffles. Enid, you'll have to share your social links so that they can see some of your.
Yes.
She's trying recipes all the time with the protein powders.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
And I wanted to, if you don't mind, I see a question from Amy here too, just regarding vitamins after surgery. So I just wanted to touch on that since we're on
Oh,
that
sure. Yeah, I missed it.
So I apologize. I just kind of caught the end of the chat here. If your questions, you can always message me on any of my social links. So if we didn't get to your question today, message me and I'm happy to, chat one-on-one. But Amy says, I always thought I had to take chewable vitamins after weight loss surgery. Is this not true? Can I take a capsule? And I would say for that first, maybe 2 to 3 months, a chewable is highly recommended. But if you're past that point and a capsule is going to be easier, go for it. So I know I get that question a lot. But yes, if you're greater than 2 or 3 months past surgery and you want to do a capsule, I would say yes. I don't know that everybody would agree with that, but going rogue here. Yeah.
No, I think I mean I agree with you, Kayla. I agree with you. And I'm sorry I was typing earlier. I apologize. I didn't know my typing was showing up. My daughter, Madison. Hello, Madison. She's out there listening, and she is also with the ProCare health team, Madison Hain, if any of you have got to meet her yet. And she's like, you're typing, I can hear it. And then she's like, Mom.
Yeah.
She probably won't post anything on here. But there's Kayla's information and her Instagram page. Oh, Madison's saying hello. And we have my email's there as well in case you just have questions or anything. So
yeah, I'll drop my email in here. I don't think I put that on the resource sheet. So there is my email too. So you can always try to get back to everybody one-on-one or Instagram messages. But then if you don't have Instagram, you can reach me by email.
Thank you for putting all that, Kayla. I look forward to doing more things with Kayla. We're going to be doing a support group together in the future, and I actually we have other ideas. Kayla, I've been checking those other ideas out. I'll just tell you, it's just taken me a little while. So we're looking at doing some professional resources.
Cool.
So we'll see. Who
Yes,
knows? You're going to see more of Kayla.
Yeah, I always enjoy getting to work with you. It's like Brenda's so thorough. She's like, "Click here, do this." You give such good direction. So the group is lucky to have you.
Thank you so much. And you'll also be seeing her more on Berry Nation if you join there with both of us. If you're already, I haven't heard if anybody's from the Berry Nation crew. If you're late to join, say hi. But that's all we have for the day. And thank you so much, Kayla. I appreciate you. And just have a good afternoon. And the rest of you, enjoy your week. Happy Hump Day.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.